Last week, I took you through Article 1 on the Digital Bill of Rights. Today, we're going to continue and we're going to take a look at Article 2. At the bottom of the screen, you can see Article 2, right to anonymity and non-traceability. So, Article 2, the right to anonymity and non-traceability. Individuals have the right to move, communicate, and interact without mandatory identification. So that means that you, as a person, have the right to be completely anonymous when you go out and about and talk with people, when you go to the park, when you go to the shops. What you choose to do when you choose to do it is down to you, and it's not open for other people to know about that, especially from a government point of view. Your right to live your life should be completely unimpeded by identification from powers that ought not to be. Anonymous or pseudonymous access to public spaces, digital platforms, and lawful services shall be protected. So when we say anonymous, that's unknown. Pseudonymous is by an identifying code or name. So on social media, you may well have, like on X, I'm not Sarah Waite on X. On a lot of my social media, the name Sarah Waite goes right the way across. So if you check me out on Facebook, I'm Sarah Waite on Facebook. Obviously, I've got my website. You check me out on here, I'm Sarah Waite on here. You check me out on YouTube, I'm Sarah Waite on YouTube. On X, I'm not Sarah Waite. So I have a name on X that would be classed as pseudonymous. So that's my pseudonym. And you have a right to that. You have the right to be in a digital platform without your actual name being known. Your handle, as they would call it. You have that right. So that's what anonymous and pseudonymous means. It's you have the right to be anonymous completely, or if you want to use a pseudonym, you have that right too. And that should be protected. And this Digital Bill of Rights protects that. So no, you've got to show who you are to access this platform. No, we shouldn't have to. No system can create a unified cross-linked profile of an individual without explicit case-specific consent. Consent is not freely given where refusal results in exclusion from services or where it is obtained through terms of service agreements, browser cookies, implied conduct, or any other mechanism that does not constitute a clear, affirmative, and informed act. Siloed databases that are capable of being linked, queried together, or aggregated through a common identifier shall be treated as a unified profile for the purposes of this bill. So, what does that mean? Effectively, you can't have an identifier, or they can't have an identifier for you across all the services that you access. So there can't be one identifier. And when it comes to your consent has to be expressly taken. You have to give your consent for any identifier to be given to you by a government organisation or a public organisation. They have to have your consent to issue you with some form of identifier. We talked about the identifier on social media. Well, that's your choice. That's what you're choosing to do. However, governments and public and private companies cannot give you an identifier and have that track across different services. And siloed databases, that comes when, oh, well, we don't really use that anymore. We've upgraded our information. So the information we had is out. It's not gone. It's siloed. It's a siloed database. It's sitting in the ether somewhere up in the cloud, but it's not gone. So that is covered as well. So siloed databases that are capable of being linked, queried together, or aggregated through a common identifier. So you cannot be given a common identifier. And the best way to remember it is, I am not a member, I am a free man. For all of you that are old enough to remember, that's probably how long ago I watched the TV. No essential service provider, public or private, may require digital identification, biometric data, or digital currency as the sole means of access. All essential services must provide anonymous or pseudonymous access options. Essential service shall be interpreted broadly and self-executingly. A service is essential if it meets the criteria set out in the definitions section. The definitions section is a section that we will go through, regardless of whether it appears on the Commissioner's register. The Commissioner is a section that we will go through. That's on the governance of the Digital Bill of Rights. Any private entity contending it is not an essential service bears the burden of proof to that effect. A service used by more than 20% of the adult population shall be presumed essential unless the entity demonstrates otherwise to the Commissioner's satisfaction. The Digital Rights Commissioner shall maintain a publicly accessible register of services designated as essential, updated annually. So that's any service provider. Any service provider cannot expect you to be able to have, or expect you just to have, a digital identification, or they can't take your biometric data or do digital currency as a sole means of access. And as I've said before, I'm not saying that you can't have digital ID. If you choose to have a digital ID, then that's absolutely fine. That's your choice. But this is the point of it. It's the choice. You should have a choice as to whether you have this or not. So if you want it, all power to you. I don't want it. I don't want to be forced to have it. So you can, if you want to, comply with all of that digital identification, biometric data, and the digital currency, if that's your want. But it's not my want. And I want to make sure that everybody who disagrees with it doesn't have to take it on board. And when it comes to service users, we are the service users, and it would cover services that are in place now, but also services that will be put in place later on as well. If a service is deemed as essential because 20% of the population use it, then the database will reflect that, and the Commissioner will have that database. If a new service comes in and it's deemed as essential, then the same, and that database will be updated. But if a service is no longer in use and people aren't using it, then that will fall away from the Commissioner's database. So it will be updated yearly, and it's held by the Commissioner, not the government. Okay. Public-private partnerships, commercial gatekeeping, or third-party outsourcing may not be used to circumvent these protections. Where government delegates service provision to private entities, these entities remain bound by these rights. So if the government turns around and says, oh no, we've outsourced to Palantir, or we've outsourced to Apple, or we've outsourced to a facial recognition private company, no, they are bound by these rights. So it's not just government, it's private companies are bound by these as well. So the effect of that, it makes centralized identity databases, cross-linked digital ID systems, and private sector identity requirements unconstitutional. It tightens consent standards to prevent manipulation through broad terms of service or implied consent, expands the essential services designation to cover emerging necessities, and requires the Commissioner to maintain a live public register. So that's the effect. What do we mean by implied consent? Implied consent would be along the lines of, it's implied if you're in a terrible way and you end up in hospital and you're not able to give consent for a procedure, the doctors will take implied consent of the fact that they need to save your life or they need to do a procedure that's going to make your life better. So that's an example of implied consent if you're querying what that term means. But it tightens the standards to prevent manipulation of that. Okay, so that is the end of Article 2.